Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Today we fire up the flux capacitor and set the date for 1990. There I am, sitting on the living room floor, playing HeroQuest, which I had received Christmas morning 1989. HeroQuest to me, then and to a lesser extent now, was distilled magic. A world of adventure in a box that redefined in my mind what a board game could be and the kinds of games I wanted to play. At the time HeroQuest made its way to the top of my Christmas list, Games Workshop was not unknown to me, but I hadn't yet learned exactly what it was. I had purchased a few copies of White Dwarf magazine because the artwork and painted toys looked cool, but for the most part, Warhammer Fantasy Battle and Warhammer 40,000 were alien to me. In fact, it was not until 1992, with the arrival of the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, that I would finally stop worrying and learn to love the WoW, becoming an old world greenskin boss. And, as bizarre as it may seem, while I did play games like Titan Legions and Space Hulk, I never got into 40k at all, only playing my first games of it in 2017, as documented in some of the ghastly early videos I made for this very channel. All that is to say, when I first saw Space Crusade advertised, I didn't really know what it was, but I knew I needed it, and it did become my first serious foray into the world, or worlds, of Space Marines, Orcs and Genestealers. To be honest, I originally thought what I suspect many other people thought. Space Crusade was HeroQuest in space. Indeed, it was from the same designer, Stephen Baker, and MB Games were quick to stress that it was from the makers of HeroQuest. In some territories, it was even branded as StarQuest to emphasize that connection. Even now, I often see people referring to it as space-themed HeroQuest, but in reality, it shares few similarities with its big brother besides the partnership between MB Games and Games Workshop. In Space Crusade, there is no roll to move, no searching for traps, no treasure, no winding mazes of narrow corridors that are gradually revealed through exploration. A majority of the combat is ranged, and Marine players control full squads rather than individual heroes. Space Crusade is more like a skirmish game, with units of highly trained Marines dropped behind enemy lines. Even mechanisms that could be considered similar to those found in HeroQuest are significantly different. Certainly the alien player, Space Crusade's version of Zargon, has a secret map of the mission, but that map doesn't specify where monsters are. The alien has relative freedom to deploy forces however they wish, with the exception of certain designated reinforcement zones. And while both games employ custom dice, those dice work in completely different ways. But I am getting ahead of myself, so let's back up. It's 1990, I love HeroQuest, and I am interested but uninitiated in Games Workshop. And I see this new game, Space Crusade. Love at first sight. I had to have it, and luckily, I had some pennies saved. Of course, this was before the internet became widespread, at least a decade before I had dial-up at home. But at that time my mum had one of those mail order catalogues that had all sorts of stuff in it. Everything from clothes and kitchenware to electrical goods and toys. And there, tucked in amongst the board games, was a thumbnail picture. Probably no bigger than my actual thumbnail. Space Crusade. I ordered it and then I waited. And waited. Today we live in a world of next day deliveries, but back in 1990, oh boy, I nearly burned a hole in that page of the catalogue staring at that thumbnail, imagining what the game was like, because I had no idea. 10-year-old me was living by the seat of his pants, spending his money on the promise of adventure. The promise of a single image in a catalogue. And of course, a badass television advert.
Space Crusade takes you into warp space to fight the force of chaos. Deep in a parallel universe where nightmares are real. Space Crusade, the ultimate adventure game where you must use all your skill and weaponry.
Plasma gun! Dreadnought!
To battle through infested starships emerge the victor, and win the highest rank. The ultimate encounter is here. Space Crusade.
And then one day, a huge box arrived in the post. I tore into the plastic wrapper, and there it was. A game I didn't know how to play, and yet had played in my mind 100 times already. I knew Space Crusade was something special as soon as I saw the box art. I was too young to appreciate the Giga-esque border or the Scarface parody of the Central Marine, but I was captivated by the sense of danger. The muzzle flashes as the Marines gunned down swarms of alien creatures and androids. There was so much action and excitement. Incidentally, this was the original box art by Jim Burns, which was considered a bit much for an American audience and was subsequently replaced with art by David Skew. A somewhat redundant move, as the game never actually got released in North America at all. Naturally, I have a fondness for the original, but being a collector, I do have both designs in my collection. I would also be remiss not to mention the back of the box, which I rated as the best example of a picture on a game box depicting people playing that game in a very silly list I made for this channel some time ago. The prototype components are a delight, and the artistic backdrop sets the scene and really captures that feeling of being drawn into the adventure. Painted versions of prototype miniatures are also displayed around the side of the box. I would absolutely love to have some of these in my collection, especially the Chaos Commander with a power axe who didn't even make it into the final game. It is hard to express in words the excitement I felt when I first opened that box as a child. Seeing these stacks of colour-coded miniatures on their frames, the stunning artwork on the cards, the large map tiles and 3D walls. I had been swept away by my imagination when I first opened HeroQuest, but this was magnitudes greater. I was entirely lost in another galaxy. There was just something about those chunky Marines, their hunched frames and stoic poses, and they had interchangeable push-fit weapons. This was such an exciting gimmick for me at the time. Having a real visual way to identify exactly how your characters were armed was special. Over time, it was possible for the plastic pegs to weaken, and I suspect I may have broken one or two in my youth. So for my current set, I have magnetised all the miniatures so it's easier to arm them. There is a nice satisfying snap as they go into battle now. And the gimmicks didn't stop there. MB had made every effort to make Space Crusade an absorbing experience. There were plastic commander displays with movable dials, plug-in counters and markers for tracking the state of your team. There was a computer console with readouts of the enemy stats, a clipped-together 3-dimensional board with stand-up doors, and such a variety of aliens to decimate. Swarms of orcs and Gretchen, a unit of Chaos Marines, Chaos androids, lurking genestealers, and the unforgettable and terrifying Chaos Dreadnought. I think today some people are confused about this mix of enemies, but 40k in the 90s was a different beast. These were the rogue trader days before much of the current lore was established. Orc freebooters and their Gretchen lackeys would ally with anyone for the right price and would happily throw in their lot with a group of Chaos Marines if it would benefit them. Meanwhile, genestealers were lurking horrors, allied to no one at a point when tyranids had yet to become an established faction. Funnily enough, it was Games Workshop's Advanced Space Crusade, which came out shortly afterwards, that started laying more of the foundation of the Tyranid story, introducing them as the main antagonists in that game, incorporating genestealers into their ranks, giving us a chance to explore their living bioships, and blow up a sphincter, and even including the first ever Tyranid warrior miniatures, which I still love to this day. They didn't look cool, they looked alien. The story of Space Crusade is a simple one. Sometimes ships get lost in the warp. They are twisted and corrupted by chaos energy, and when they finally emerge, they are unrecognisable husks, space hulks. Marines are sent to explore these hulks and eradicate any threats to the Imperium. One such vessel is 547, codename Abomination. 3 squads of Marines from the Blood Angels, Imperial Fist and Ultramarines chapters have been sent into the Abomination to complete a series of 12 missions, which link together to form a loose narrative campaign. As stories go, it does lack the sweeping epicness of HeroQuest. You are basically performing one long boarding action, and the missions are all part of a single evolving combat encounter. However, Space Crusade really sells its premise. Scattered throughout the rulesbook there is an illustrated story charting the doomed attempts of Beta Squad to scout the vessel, all told through the Vox communications with their mothership. It's intense, heavily influenced by the Colonial Marines' first encounter with the Xenomorphs in Aliens, and utterly gripping. The first mission picks up where this prologue ends, with the Marines going into the Space Hulk to take out the dreadnought that killed Beta Squad. In Mission 2, they are ordered to take down a Chaos Commander. In Mission 3, they need to intercept an alien force and destroy it. In Mission 4, they need to create a diversion to distract attention from the Marines' main assault while keeping casualties to a minimum. In Mission 5, they must clear all the remaining greenskins from the sector. In Mission 6, they must repel an attack by 2 Chaos Marine squads. In Mission 7, they need to secure a loading bay so the main force can bring up heavy equipment for the final assault. In Mission 8, the Marines need to withdraw in an orderly manner in the face of stiff opposition. In Mission 9, they must destroy the command center. In Mission 10, they need to destroy the power source for a defense shield the aliens are using to repel the assault. In Mission 11, the defense shield has been taken down and the Marines must destroy the last 2 Chaos Commanders. Finally, in Mission 12, it's a climactic battle against the remaining alien forces. So you do get a sense of the ebb and flow of the battle, and it does feel like you are part of a larger assault. And I love that. It's interesting to be a cog in a larger machine, to see small skirmishes that are microcosms of a larger conflict. However, the missions are pretty much the same thing. With the exception of Mission 8 where the Marines are on the run, each mission involves exploring the area and either wiping out all the aliens or assassinating particular types of aliens. It is, more than a dungeon crawler, a skirmish game. However, Space Crusade does offer two fun twists that add a huge amount to each mission. Firstly, the campaign isn't just about completing the objectives and sticking it to your enemies. It is a quest for glory, a race for promotion through 4 ranks. Every alien a Marine player kills is worth points, and Marine players will also score points for completing mission objectives. However, they will lose points for each member of their squad that dies. At the same time, the alien player scores points for killing Marines or preventing them from completing their objectives. At the end of each game, players tot up their points and the winner gains a rank. Additionally, Marines earn honour badges which they can cash in to gain in rank, granting them access to additional equipment and orders. They immediately win the campaign if they reach the rank of Captain Senioris, which can happen before all 12 missions are completed. If a Marine player does poorly in any mission and scores 10 or less points, their commander re-enters the spaceship alone to redeem himself and dies in battle. That player has to start from scratch with a new sergeant and a basic squad. Similarly, the alien player earns marks of chaos to gain in rank, which grants them additional reinforcements and a chance to set aside event cards to play at the perfect moment. They win the campaign if they reach the rank of Lord of Chaos, but if they do badly in any mission and score less than 30 points, they are turned into a Chaos spawn and the alien player has to start over. This race for victory means that even though the Marine players are all technically on the same side, pursuing the same goal, cooperation is optional. There can be only one winner, and they are free to gun each other down if they want to. Alliances are fragile at best. The second twist on the formula is that each primary mission also has a secondary mission. This is initially unknown to the Marine players and only comes into effect if the secondary mission event card turns up during the game. Secondary missions are usually a chance to score bonus points, and will often point out a particular type of enemy to kill, direct Marines to withdraw, identify rooms that need to be blown up, or even cause malfunctions that disrupt the use of certain weapons. This means there is quite a lot going on in each game. If you are a Marine, you start at a docking claw. The blast doors open and you venture inside, uncertain what aliens await and in what quantities. You have a main objective to achieve, but at any point a crackling voice over the communications channel could set up a secondary mission to complete. You are surrounded by Marines from other chapters, Marines that are, at least to begin with, going to aid your calls. But at any second they could turn on you. The tension is palpable before you make your first move. And then the alien player starts placing blips. The traces of alien movement picked up by the Marines' motion scanners. A warning of things to come. But we'll get to that. First, I need to talk about being a Marine player. Unlike HeroQuest, where you grab a miniature and character card and start playing, Space Crusade demands some prep work. You have to choose a squad, and then you have to kit them out accordingly. And this is so much fun, and, at the time, something that was entirely new to me. A squad of Marines comprises 4 grunts and 1 commander. And at first blush, all 3 chapters are identical. The commander can be armed with a power sword and power fist, or glove as it was called back then, or a power axe and bolt pistol, or a heavy bolter. Meanwhile, 1 grunt has to have a heavy weapon, either a plasma gun, missile launcher, or assault cannon, and 1 has to have a regular bolter. The other 2 can have bolters or heavy weapons, your choice. And the thing that really struck me at the time, all of those weapons feel different. In HeroQuest, no matter how magic your magic sword was, you just got to roll the custom dice and add up your skulls. But here, you had weapons with different attack patterns, specific conditions under which they excelled, threats that would force your opponent to react in specific ways. Furthermore, each chapter has a unique mix of order and equipment cards. At the start of a campaign or one-off game, each Marine player gets to pick 1 order and 4 pieces of equipment, and could eventually have as many as 4 orders and 8 pieces of equipment, and these cards really help to give the chapters their personality. The Blood Angels are close combat specialists and have orders that focus on closing ground and getting into melee. Their equipment includes melter bombs, bolt pistols and close assault blades, all of which grant melee bonuses. Meanwhile, their commander has the chance to take a force field that increases his armor value, and a bionic arm that lets him reroll 1 dice in melee. The Imperial Fists are heavy weapons experts. Their orders focus on getting extra shots out of their heavy weapons, or compensating for the fact that heavy weapons make Marines move slower. Their equipment includes suspensors that negate the movement penalty for heavy weapons, and their commander can take a bionic eye to gain a reroll on ranged attacks, and a combi weapon that lets them fire a heavy bolter as though it was a plasma gun. Finally, the Ultramarines are the all-rounders, focusing on tactical flexibility. Their orders let them fill a number of battlefield roles, giving them extra movement or extra attacks at close combat or range. They have access to different types of grenades, a bioscanner that lets them check out what enemy blips are, and their commander can take a medipack to recover lost hit points, and digital weapons that allow 1 reroll in close combat or at range. You will notice the equipment options do guide your selections of weapons. Blood Angels benefit from taking more bolters and a commander with a power sword. Imperial Fists should load up on heavy weapons and give their commander a heavy bolter combi weapon, while the Ultramarines can mix things up, benefiting most from a commander with a bolt pistol and power axe. Sadly, the alien player doesn't have options for building their force. They are allocated a specific number of troops and reinforcements based on the mission. I would have loved to see a system where they could buy upgrades for their commanders and dreadnoughts, or gain other types of equipment. Still, with the Marines kitted out and a mission selected, the alien player sets up the board and positions the docking claws for each Marine player. And at this point, no enemies are placed. The Space Hulk is silent, waiting expectantly. The Marine players take their turns first in clockwise order. Each of their models can move and attack in any order. Additionally, each turn Marines can use any of their equipment cards and 1 of their order cards. Each Marine has a fixed number of movement points, 4 for heavy weapons, 6 for everyone else, and they can move orthogonally or diagonally. While moving, they can open any doors as a free action. After the first Marine to enter a previously unexplored quadrant of the board finishes their move, the alien player gets to place blips. These represent signatures on the Marine's motion scanners, traces of life and death, and the alien player is free to use whatever blips they have at their disposal. They could dump everything they have on the first board, they could spread things out, they could drop a dreadnought on top of the Marines in turn 1 and let chaos ensue. The only rules are 1 blip per space, and no blips can be placed in line of sight to any Marine. And this gives the alien player so many choices, what to place and where to place it. They really need to get the balance right, making sure they have enough units to hurt the Marines, but without risking giving away too many points too early. As soon as a blip comes into a Marine's line of sight, it is flipped over to reveal what kind of alien it represents, and the token is replaced with the relevant miniature. Now, it's time for the Marines to do what they do best. Each Marine can attack once per turn unless they have an order that says otherwise. Often, that attack will be using a ranged weapon, and as mentioned previously, the nature of the attack depends on the weapon. Bolters target a single character. You roll 2 white dice, which are custom light weapon dice. They have 4 sides with a 0, 1 side with a 1, and 1 side with a 2. And the aim is to roll higher than the target's armor value. You score 1 wound for each point in excess of the armor. For example, orcs have an armor value of 1, so if you rolled 3, you would inflict 2 wounds. In almost all cases, a single wound is enough to take down a target. Only Marine commanders and the dreadnought have multiple life points. The heavy bolter is a similar deal. It targets 1 character, but you get to roll 2 red dice. Red dice are the heavy weapon dice, so they have 3 zeros, and then a 1, a 2, and a 3. The assault cannon is designed for clearing out low strength enemies that are scattered around the play area. You roll 2 red dice and you add up the result. You may then distribute those points to any visible targets, bearing in mind that you still need to exceed their armor value to inflict damage. The missile launcher is the business for groups of packed enemies, and just having one on your team will encourage aliens to spread out. When you fire the missile launcher, you target any space on the board that you can see. You roll 2 red dice, and any model on the target square is hit for the combined total of those dice. Any models on adjacent spaces are hit for the value of the highest of the 2 dice. So if you roll a 2 and a 3, the target is hit for 5, and all characters in adjacent spaces, friend or foe, are hit for 3. The plasma gun is the trickiest to get to grips with. It blasts things in a straight line. You roll 2 red dice, and every model in the chosen line of fire is hit for the total of the 2 dice. If you can catch a nice line of aliens in a long corridor, it can be devastating. But you have to watch out. Your own Marines are susceptible to the blast, and a wily alien player can position their units to make it difficult for the plasma gun to target more than a few at once. And this diversity in the weapons, greatly expanded if you have the Mission Dreadnought expansion, which introduces these super heavy weapons, was such an exciting thing for me as a child. The options available, the strategies you can employ, the decisions presented each turn as you choose the right order to activate your models so that you can maximise your firepower while minimising risk to your own Marines. Each turn is an optimisation puzzle. How many aliens can you kill or neutralise before they have a chance to activate? Throw in the various orders and equipment cards, and you really feel like you are in charge of a crack team of superheroes. Powerful Marines with the skill and technology to take on swarms of monstrous foes. This was so much more than kicking down doors, killing monsters and taking their loot. This involved tactics, care, cunning, considered moves, and a good dose of luck. Those dice can be unforgiving. And sometimes, in the midst of the gunfire, brutal melee combat breaks out. Once you are toe-to-toe with the enemy, armour counts for nothing. You roll your close combat dice and they roll theirs. You compare the results, higher score wins, and the loser takes damage equal to the difference. This is terrifying. Every close combat roll is edge of the seat. It could go either way. Remember, most units, even the Marines, only have a single life point. A few bad rolls could decimate your squad. A really bad roll could see your commander taking a dirt nap. It's brutal. And this is something that really makes Space Crusade stand out from HeroQuest. Bear in mind, I grew up playing the European edition of HeroQuest, where most enemies had just a single body point, and the game was, well, fairly easy a lot of the time. If the heroes teamed up, there wasn't much that could trouble them. Things were more trying under the North American rule set, but even then, Zargon was supposed to be as much a dungeon master as an opponent. Their main goal was to create a fun adventure, not decimate the heroes. But in Space Crusade, everyone is a player. Everyone is trying to score points and to rise through the ranks. The alien player wants to, and indeed can, smash you up real good. Total party kills aren't uncommon, and even if the Marines do survive, there's a chance they might turn on each other. While squabbling between chapters is funny, generally the Marines are going to need to work together because the alien player has several tricks to employ. Firstly, at the beginning of each of their turns, they draw an alien event card or decide to play one that they set aside at the start of the game. Occasionally, these will benefit the Marines, but often they will be traps the alien can spring wherever they want, special maneuvers they can employ, or even the untimely arrival of a skulking genestealer. Plus, in addition to their allocation of blips, the alien player often has reinforcement tokens. They can spend up to 6 of these at the end of their turn to bring new units onto the board at designated reinforcement points. Reinforcements arrive as miniatures rather than blips. I never really understood why. And with all reinforcements available, the alien player has double the number of units to play with. Although, obviously, the number they can have in play at any one time is restricted by the physical number of miniatures in the box. And at some point, the Marines are going to have to face the Dreadnought. This thing is epic. Striding onto the battlefield like the Ed 209 from RoboCop, it eats up 4 spaces and is armed with 2 bolters and a choice of 2 heavy weapons. And it gets to fire all of those guns every turn. The Marines will have to work quickly to take this beast down, but that isn't easy. It has an armor value of 4, making it incredibly difficult to wound. Furthermore, it has 3 life points. When it loses its first life point, it loses 1 heavy weapon. When it loses its second life point, it loses the other heavy weapon. A third wound will finally kill it. When the Dreadnought arrives, you know you are in for a battle and a tense showdown. When the dust settles, there will be winners and losers, points to add up, ranks to gain or lose, and another mission to come. Because it's true what they say, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. To me, as a child, Space Crusade was immaculate. Part skirmish game, part exploration game, part cooperative game, part competitive game, presented with miniatures and artwork that created a, for want of a better word, spellbinding sci-fi setting that was instantly engrossing. There is tension, laughter, groans of failure, cheers of success, last gasp victories, all or nothing rolls, and adventure. High adventure in a world of science. Space Crusade went on to have 2 expansions, Mission Dreadnought and Elder Attack. I had neither as a child, but as an adult, you better believe they sit in my collection. Additionally, numerous rule sets were published in White Dwarf magazine for introducing Terminators, Marine Scouts, Tyranids, and even Orc raiding parties. And all of that adds so much more to the core experience. But, just looking at that core experience, the game that I waited on the doorstep for what felt like forever, the game that I stared at in a catalogue until the thumbnail was etched into my retinas. Just looking at that, it is a game that perfectly encapsulates everything I love about board games. It would be my favourite game of all time. It so very nearly is my favourite game of all time. But Dungeon Quest exists. And Dungeon Quest, well, that's for another time. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.